Hey everyone, what's up? It's Ellie here. Redfall, a game we almost didn't see coming, a vampire-themed open world up to 4-player co-op PvE, and it looks pretty darn cool. Let's dive off the deep end and get into this trailer analysis. It's in this first scene where we get confirmation that Omen is real. Omen was a thing. Not only now do we get to see that Arcane Studios Austin has truly been working on something behind the scenes, but look at the back of the book here. Omen and Prophecy. I mean, if that's not a nod to the codename the rumors had been sharing, what is? The character we see is reading a book using a supernatural ability to hold it up in front of her. K.I. Fielding's The Shunning of the Mercy Coffin. Horror and threat. Omen and prophecy. At last, the truth of what they had done crawled into their souls. It's a bit difficult to read the rest on the back of the book here clearly, even in 4K resolution, but it seemed like a casual fiction novel, quite likely to be about vampires, and foreshadowing what is to come. In the background we see that we're in a tackle store, but the bullet holes in the background and the smashed glass tell us that fishing isn't really why this character is here. Very post-apocalyptic vibes. The horror films on the left side set the tone for this trailer. We are getting some horror. Crashed shelves, spilt cereal, and hey, robot doggo. We meet another female character and begin to glide on over to the third character. We hear the first name, Dev, as the female character by the ice cream calls it out, asking if this Dev had seen anything interesting. Dev holding up his phone and recording a smouldering corpse of something that doesn't quite seem human. Look at those teeth. I think we got our vampire game. The camera continues to move and we get a look at the last member of the squad as the name Dev is repeated as we get closer. A crow sits on the shoulder of this character. And I personally thought that this crow is a small nod to Dishonored fans, as corvo is actually the Portuguese word for crow. Go on, make yourself useful, he says to the crow, who flies off, likely to scout the area. Makes me think if this means we'll get important info on what threats are nearby and what to expect from the crow and whether it will be something we can control. Think Assassin's Creed. Or maybe it'll just give us a brief heads up. Maybe telepathic powers allow the two to communicate. Or maybe it allows the character to tag enemies and allow the player a kind of dark vision experience, referring to the ability in the Dishonored series. Obviously this is cinematic, so much still to learn about this game, but I'm excited. We get a look at all 4 characters and the robot dog. In fact, we could translate that speculation about the crow right back to this little bot. Maybe the bot allows us to hack into buildings or retrieve things. Maybe it's a scout. Maybe it's a turret. I guess we'll see. The first character we meet takes a bite from a candy bar and asks if that was fun, right? So obviously they've just had a big fight. Taken down an enemy, a vampire maybe, and they're assessing their situation. Winding down but also on high alert. Obviously this isn't the end. But it seems to be the very beginning. The trailer brings us back to the events that led up to this scene. A sparky red comet-like thing flies into the ground and explodes on impact. We see Dev and the hooded character from earlier phasing out of an invisibility ability and lining up a shot with their beast sniper rifle. Before we go any further, let's take a moment to look at the city street behind them. Little tiny details in the building like the vent and the large pipes. Will we be able to explore or use verticality to our advantage, using little bits and pieces from the environment like that to climb and then parkour our way around the enemy? Let's keep watching. A close-up of this character shows he has a glowing eye, a supernatural energy emitting from it, maybe allowing for superhuman vision, maybe tuning into the side of their crow friend. He shoots multiple targets, but are they the vampires they seem to be hunting? Maybe infected civilians? Or maybe they're like vampire thralls, a mortal who is mentally bound to a vampire. He continues to shoot and we get another look at Dev, as the robot and the 2 female characters run past, shutting down Dev as he begins to reminisce at definitely the wrong time. Dev seems like a quirky type, someone who's a little eccentric with a lot of stories, but maybe only now getting their true taste of action and their first real story. They run into battle, guns blazing and a bit of a shoot-off with this enemy here. "You think they can't kill you anytime they want?" the enemy exclaims. They, referring to possible vampire bosses? This guy is clearly human, so maybe thralls are a thing. Or maybe a cult who worships them. The enemy stands back up and goes to shoot, but is instead met with a supernatural ethereal building. It kind of looks like an elevator, and it seems to kind of work like one. The enemy is shut down, but the attention is shifted to a bigger threat. A slow pan upwards, we see two bodies hovering above the ground in front of a blazing inferno, a civilian being drained of all their blood by a vampire. Vampire confirmed, everyone, and I have to say this. He gives off some major outsider vibes, okay? I have to. He really does. Look at them. With an evil grin and a drop of their prey, we see this lanky, large, outsider-like foe party up with his cult foe and another vampire as they set their sights on the four gunslingers. "How do we always get into this shit?" one of the hunters say. Well, a quick interruption explains just how they always get into this shit. We're now in an alleyway and Dev is holding the team up by making a little vlog of his vampire hunting adventures, referring to his audience as the Truth Seekers and pinning their location to Redfall, Massachusetts, which isn't a real place, I don't think. Well, Massachusetts is, but Redfall? I couldn't find it at all. I think it's a fictional town, kind of like depicting small town USA type vibes. He explains that there are clear signs of cult activity. So maybe that's what this group is? A cult group worshipping the vampires? But Dev accidentally bumps into something loud, and the cult is alerted instantly to his presence, realizing that this was indeed the moment he fucked up. He runs back to his group as fast as he can. So that's how. But now for the shit. The group brace themselves for battle, attempting to pick off enemies and slow them down, but the vampire is way too quick and they need to fall back. Dev is still defending his video making decision. People need to know what happened here. I wonder if the situation extends outside of Redfall. Maybe they're isolated. Is leaving not an option? Or does he just want to be the one who captures it all for when it's all over? Maybe they're in some sort of alternate reality of the town that they live in? Who knows? Crow Dude asks a character who we now know as Layla, as she sarcastically thanks herself for helping who we also now know as Jacob, aka Crow Dude, after he demands her assistance. Layla spawns that ethereal elevator we saw earlier, and they both fly up to the roof of a large building. Back to the action as a vampire jumps in the air towards Dev. He takes a shot and the vampire seemingly turns to ash, but there's another on his tail. Dev calls to the final nameless character, calling her Remy, and she freezes the vampire with a weapon that turns him to stone. I really have to stop here and just say, wow. I might be looking way too far into this, but the outsider-looking vampire gets frozen into stone, very similarly to how Corvo or Emily in Dishonored 2 gets kind of frozen into stone. Frozen into stone is probably the wrong term there, but I don't know what else to call it. So frozen into stone. I just can't let this go without being said. Is it symbolism, Arcane killing off Dishonored and moving on, killing off the outsider, we just saying our final goodbyes to the concept of the outsider? Dev then blows them apart and the body crumbles to the floor below. But there's another vampire, and it teleports behind a frightened Remy, grabbing her by the throat and lifting her up. Dev lets off a shot of a gun that seems to launch a wooden stake, the traditional method of killing a vampire, according to European folklore. But the attempt falls short as the vampire catches the stake and Dev channels his inner Ronald Weasley. Bloody hell. All hope seems lost until Remy uses the blade at the end of her weapon to pierce the vampire's heart, causing it to burst into flames. We're transported back to Jacob and Layla, who are confronted by another unique-looking vampire floating in the air. This one seems to have a red flaming spear hook ability, which he aims at Jacob, but he uses his invisibility to barely escape. The vampire then uses a red flaming far reach ability to grab Layla and drag her to her, but Jacob doesn't miss his shot, and Layla is let go. She tumbles to the ground and opens up this huge ethereal purple umbrella. It seems to act like a force field against the vampire, expanding until it throws her off the building and back onto the ground with Dev, Remy, and her robot cohort, who she calls Bribon. Bribon charges and tackles the vampire through the glass window of a business. The group gather together and confront the vampire. Kill me, end me. You can't break the blood trance. It's only just begun. The vampire screeches and the last fight ensues. So, the blood trance, huh? This sounds like some sort of ceremony or ritual we need to stop. It cuts to black and we're back in the present. Dev and Remy walk through the front door and Remy throws away her drink, explaining that she thinks there's vampire in it. Remy's disgusted, but Dev seems really intrigued, wanting to know every detail, maybe for his vlog. The whole group leaves the store and wanders back out onto the street. Daylight brings only a small bit of life back to the town. A reboot of the song Oh Child by the 5 Stairsteps plays in the background, which is a song that discusses things getting easier and brighter. I think here the crow actually talks and says, "Let's keep moving," repeating what Jacob had just said, Layla calling the bird Edgar Allan Bro. The group discusses if they'd want things to go back to normal, and Remy responds by saying, "Not if I still have to pay my student loans," which I feel you, Remy, I really do. In the last scene, we're up high. Another terrifying looking vampire looks over Redfall, ready and waiting as what looks like another portal opens up the sky, engulfing the newly emerged light. And that's it. That's what we've seen of Redfall so far. What did you guys think? Thank you so much for watching. I'll be covering more of this game, so make sure you subscribe to keep up. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!